Council, come to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City Council has adopted a code of civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand, disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. And just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted for Pella TV, so anyone who wishes to speak to council, please come to the podium and that microphone before you speak, so that the people that are watching at home can not only hear you but see you. Before we get into our meeting tonight, I have five very special guests here that I want to recognize before we get going on our business meeting. So the first recognition that I want to talk about is Julio Chirella. I met Julio back in the early 80s. We were remodeling a building downtown, and he drew the design, the plans for us. So it's a long time ago, but the thing I never forgot about Julio was you were not only his friend, you were his very good friend. And Julio has served in different capacities for the city for a long time. Most recently, he's been on the Planning and Zoning Committee for 33 years. And so I want to read a proclamation recognizing all those years of service to the City of Pella. Julio's been slowed down a little bit as of late with some things going on. So I'm going to read this proclamation, and then I'm going to walk over and give it to him. I don't know, is anybody going to take some pictures? Maybe we can just do it right there if you want to do that. But so here's the proclamation. This is proclamation from the office of the mayor. Proclamation of recognition of Julio Chirella's years of service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Whereas Julio Chirella served on the Planning and Zoning Commission from September 15, 1992 to May 1, 2015, and from June 7, 2016 to May 1, 2026. And whereas Julio was an active and faithful member of the commission, and whereas Julio's during his 33 years of service to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Julio was an informed and encouraging member, and his perspective was greatly appreciated and beneficial to the commission. And whereas Julio played a key role in various comprehensive plan updates and other planning efforts, and whereas the City of Pella wishes to acknowledge the diligent and dedication with which Julio represented our community. Now therefore I, Don DeWard, Mayor of Pella, on behalf of the City Council and citizens of Pella, do hereby recognize Julio Chirella for his 33 years of service to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated this 5th day of May, 2026.
Thank you.
This is for
Thank
you.
you so much.
This is for you.
Thank you. Thank you so
for
much.
all those years of service.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Yes.
As a community.
You know, yes, there were many years of service, but when I started working, helping the church, the city, I recognized that the more you do for the city, the better you like it. So I love it. So, you know, it's, especially when I become part of the Pella Corporation and help the country, and many times I put my finger in there, so come here, you gotta forget about it. So thank you so much for that, and love to all of you here, because that's why we're living here. And the more you do for this, the better you are. So
Thank you, Julio.
thank you so much.
I hope everybody sitting here heard that.
Yes, it's my
Takes it to
pleasure.
heart.
It's my
Thank you,
pleasure.
Julio. All right, so I said I had 5 people that I want to recognize, so I have 4 more. So I don't know, from time to time, you know that I'm quite in tune to athletics. Been a big part of my life for a long time. But the Drake Relays happened a couple weeks ago. Now anybody that knows anything about track and field know that the Drake Relays are one of the premier events, not just in Iowa, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And so we had a bunch of athletes that finished very well at the Drake Relays, as we always do. But there was one group that caught my eye when I was looking at the results, and this is called the mixed 4x4 middle school relay team. Now, I don't know if there's any track people in here, but if you've ever had to run a 400-meter race, it's one of the most difficult ones because it's an all-out sprint and takes a lot of fortitude to do that. But our Pella Middle School, in the mixed 4x4 relay, not only won the race, they finished first, but they also set a new meet record in the event. So the old record was 3:58.02, and these guys ran a 3:56.89. And so I'm going to invite, I know these guys just love being in the spotlight, but I'm going to invite the 4 of them up here so that they can be recognized and that we can congratulate them. More than that, on behalf of the community, I want to say thank you for the effort, the time, and everything you guys put in to represent this community as well as you do. So I would like to see Kobe Klein, Joanna Vandervoort, Emmett Manning, and Machen Cowman come up front by me a minute. So let's see, I believe Kobe, you started it. Joanna ran second, Emmett ran third, and Machen anchored the race. But if you would see the list of the teams they beat, so the Drake Relays, there's no such thing as class or anything, because they beat Waukee Northwest and Waukee and Southeast Cove. And so their accomplishment is pretty special. And so I wanted to introduce them to the community, have a chance for you guys to see them, and I want to say congratulations and thank you so much for the effort that you put in on representing the community of Pella. So we're very, very proud of you, and I know you're only 8th graders, so we got a chance to see a lot more moving forward. So let's recognize. Okay, you can go sit down. Thanks for indulging me. Okay, now we'll move on. So can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Support. Randerhorst, Van Strylen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Randerhorst?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to reappoint Sarah Buchheit to the Planning and Zoning Commission. She has served on the commission since 2021, attending 53 of the 55 meetings held during her current term. If approved, Sarah's new 5-year term would expire on May 1, 2031. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support. Randerhorst and Strylen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Randerhorst?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to appoint Noah Chaplin to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Noah currently works as an attorney at Cracus and Chaplin, having graduated from the University of Iowa of Law, or College of Law. If approved, Noah's 5-year term would expire on May 1, 2031. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
Manstra, Carlstone, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Randerhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to appoint Emily Ott to the Library Board of Trustees, this appointment would fill a county vacancy due to another term ending. If approved, Emily's 3-year term would expire on June 30, 2029. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Brander, I'm sorry, it was Banster, Branderhorst. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
No.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Motion passed. I would like to appoint Carol Van Kloppenberg to the Library Board of Trustees. If approved, Carol's appointment would begin immediately to fill a vacancy, and she would complete the remainder of the vacant position's term, which ends June 30, 2027. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Branderhorst, Banstra, any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I made a comment here, I voted no on the last one, because in their application and her application, narrowing intellectual freedom with a political or religious lens is simply not acceptable. Just about everything's either political or religious. I don't know why we're narrowing the lens. And Carol's application talks about currently libraries face challenges from groups who seek to control libraries offering especially to juveniles. Yes, we are trying to isolate very deleterious material from children's grasp. And if you don't believe me, I can share with you at another time what I'm talking about. But it's sexually explicit material. And we've not made any inroads with, at the library to put it behind the counter or limit access to it. The e-books that are available are worse than the printed books, and, but there you are.
Okay,
That's my turn.
anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Butler?
No.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Van Strylen?
Yes.
Motion passed. This time we have opportunity for a public forum. Anyone wishing to address council regarding any agenda item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Arden Van Zandt, live at 17 Big Rock Park Road. Here speaking on behalf of the Friends of the Pella Community Center. Just want to speak in support of both the proposal that has been put forward by Stahl's Construction and the 2080 agreement between the Friends of the Pella Community Center and the City of Pella. We've come a long way. We finally see the end of at the end of the light of this tunnel. We thank the council for all their support through this, especially thank Mike Nardini and his staff for all his support through this. So we encourage you to vote in favor of both the 28 agreement and the proposal to renovate the community center. We think we can get it done before next tulip time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Harry Ehrlich, 725 Countryside Lane. I'd like to second that statement for supporting the community center renovation and the agreement. It's been a long time coming, and I'm glad to see the bids come in, very positive. The second item I've got comments on is item F3, which is the consultant agreement for the airport master plan, next 5 years. I've been attending a couple of or several of the airport committee meetings, and I was at the last meeting, I believe it was the 24th, when it was announced by staff that there would be a recommendation coming to appoint a new consultant or a different consultant for the next phase of the master planning for the current airport, McClure Engineering. I have no experience with them. I have no experience with HDR directly. In my prior work, I I've known representatives from their firm. They're a major firm. I guess what I'd like to ask is for the staff, when they present this item, to expand a little bit on how the decision was made to select a new consultant rather than HDR. My observation's been that they've done a good job, presented good information, represented the city well, have done a lot of positive work to move to where we are now, and we're looking at changing horses in the middle of the trip here. And that concerns me. Not that the McClure can't do the job. Like I said, I have no negative feelings about them at all, but I'm concerned that we're changing, and the staff report doesn't go into any kind of detail of how the process worked and how the evaluation was completed to make what I think is a substantial change. Mr. Nardini did give me a call and we talked, and I appreciate that, but we didn't get into the details of this. So I just ask that we have no more information when you present it. Thank you.
Dennis Fairchild, 1008 Park Lane here in Pella. Quick question prior to the presentation of the operational plan of the community center. First, very supportive of the community center. It's really around the organizational structure. It appears to be a very classic management org chart. I was wondering, are we looking at any agentic AI type programs being streamlining before we fill those positions? Have we piloted anything to reduce bureaucracy or our management layers? Maybe the city administrator could answer that, since the city proposed the classic org chart.
I'm trying to address that during the presentation this
Okay.
evening, so.
Okay, so it'll be addressed during the presentation. Okay, great.
Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Ben Stryland, Carl Stone, any discussion?
I just wanted to give I guess it would be a follow-up comment on the Board of Adjustment hearing. That was, the minutes are in there. It shows that the hearing was extended for another month, and so we'll have to wait another month probably till we get the minutes. But that was regarding the proposed tap room next to the theater, which was tabled because of the so few Board of Adjustment members there. At the following meeting, and there was some objection, the following meeting, the full Board of Adjustment that was on site were here or by telephone. They voted unanimously for it. The objections were deemed to be completely without merit, and so that has been passed, and that will be coming in our future, which I am personally happy for. The second maybe comment I would say on that, that second meeting, it was a packed room, more than it was even here tonight, and I don't know if we can ever guess how many people come to board and commission meetings, but having a speaker system in place at those times would be helpful, because I was sitting in the back and people were talking facing this way. I could not hear the board members, and I could not hear some of the folks talking, and also I had people come up to me afterwards and say, hey, we couldn't hear things being said too. So just an idea. I know we can't predict that all the time, but that might be helpful as we go forward.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Dan Stryland.
Yes.
Carl Stone.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Bodnar.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, Mike's going to explain the community center operation plan.
Okay. Alrighty, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to explain this item, and for those in attendance and those watching at home on Pella TV, we'd like to go ahead and briefly talk this evening about the proposed operational plan for the community center, just to get everyone up to speed. We're going to be considering later on in the agenda of the City Council, that is whether to proceed this evening with the community center renovation project. Now, as background on this, we talked a lot about both the indoor recreation center and the community center and the standards that we have established before we could proceed with either one of these projects. Is the operational plan that is presented for these projects, the golden rule is that it couldn't require an additional subsidy from the City of Pella. And we're going to be elaborating on this, but it's being driven basically at the state level, Iowa is currently undergoing property tax reform. The state legislature recently passed a property tax proposal on that as well that will somewhat restrict the city's revenues on a go-forward basis. So when we talk about operations and potentially requiring additional subsidies on things, that could be problematic not only on rec center operations, community center operations, but all operations that are funded out of the city's general fund. So what we have this evening is a very fluid plan that we have. It's one option that could work for the city and what we've established on a preliminary basis. But if you look at this, if you recall with the previous discussions that we've had on operations at the Community Services Department, we've talked about really anytime you start talking about property tax reform, all city operations are going to have to pitch in and we're all going to have to share resources. And that's how the structure is. It's set up so we can share resources and we can assist one division. So we're all in this together. The plan that we have this evening basically adds another position that we have on for this, and it's one that's been very familiar to the city. So if you look at here, we have our Community Services Director, and then we have what we call the divisions that we have currently at the City of Pella. We have an Aquatics Manager that's over the city's aquatic programs. We have a Parks Manager that's over the city's park system. We also have a Golf and Athletic Fields Manager that's over the Boslana Golf Course as well as the Pole Sports Park. And then we have a new position that we are currently advertising for. That position is going to be responsible for programming at the Pella Indoor Recreation Center, so this will be non-aquatic programs as well. The position that we have this evening is a Community Services Manager that posing, you can see it's kind of a mixed bag of things, somewhat unique on it. We're very excited about it, but when you look at the job description as listed, we have about 50% of the job duties we believe will be established at the community center once the project is complete, and 15% of the duties will be assisting either other activities within the Community Services Department as well as some city administration items as well. Now I'll state for the record, if we're successful with the rec center, which we are striving to be, as well as the community center, keep in mind this could always be expanded. So in our preliminary analysis, if the fees are higher than what we have forecasted, we could always add on and expand programs, but you have to start somewhere, and that's the key thing to keep in mind tonight. We have to start somewhere. What I'm going to show you this evening is we have to have a reasonable belief that we could operate the community center once it's complete at a less cost, at the same level or a less cost than what we're currently operating it at. So let's go ahead, please, Heidi. This is a brief snapshot of our operations over the community center, and it looks a little different than what was in the budget book. What we have here is the people that directly work at the community center. So in the city's budget book, we have some administrative positions that are funded exclusively out of the community center, and it tends to make matters look like the community center is a higher expenditure than what it is for the city of Pella. But when we look at this, what we have here starting off revenues is this is basically based off FY25 actuals. So we're somewhere right around $65,600 in user fees. I would say from the list of programming that we're talking with the renovation, and this could be new cooking classes, new adult classes that we have, as well as the room rentals that we have with the facility, we believe in an expansion of the city's arts center. We believe those fees could increase significantly over where they have historically been for the community center. So that's something I do feel comfortable and confident about, that we can expand the user fees for the community center. Now, as far as the expenditures are concerned, traditionally, utilities for the building is about $36,000 per year. Operating expenditures are just a tad under $59,000. Personnel cost, again, just under $92,000, and traditionally we've had about a half-time full-time position dedicated to the community center oversight, seeing the art center as well. So when we look at those operating costs, we would like to think that we could operate under those, but realistically they're probably going to be about the same level as what we've traditionally been. Here's the item that I think that we can make some headway in, and that's property insurance. We've seen significant increases at the community center, and a lot of this has just been that the building's outdated, the electrical and mechanical system's outdated, and I call it the high-risk pool, but we've been in the high-risk pool for insurance reasons for the last 3 years on the building, and we're currently paying just under $90,000 a year for property insurance on the community center. There was a day and age not too long ago where that number would have been somewhere right around $25,000 per year. So with the renovation, we're hoping to significantly reduce the property tax, property insurance for the building as well. But as you can see, When we look at this from a direct cost basis, and we look at the people actually directly working on the community center, we've been at $211,000. And my message to the city council tonight is this is a preliminary plan. It is fluid, but I also feel that we could stay within those confines and not request an additional subsidy from the city of Pella to operate the community center if we proceed with the community center project this evening. So with that, before we go on, I guess we can conclude this part before we open up the questions. Heidi, let's go ahead to the next slide, please. Now, as far as the community center manager, we mentioned that they'll be assisting with other duties with the city as well as other activities within the community services department. Again, we're all in this together, and we got to have that mentality on it. With that, with the position, as far as when we anticipate hiring, there's been an item that's popped up here within the last couple of days that we need to probably address before we talk about operations and adding additional staff on. And we stated earlier that the state legislature recently passed a property tax bill, high-level overview. For the city's main operating levy amount, we are capped at levying 2% more than what we have in the previous year. And there's some other items as far as state funding assistance that's been removed from cities as well. Going into this, we're still diving into the numbers to look at what the exact impact is going to be to the city of Pella. I feel very confident with our staff that we'll come up with options and we'll get through this, but I'm not saying it's not going to be challenging. And what I think is important is before we talk about operations, adding on new staff, that we have a firm understanding where we stand financially after the state's property tax bill on that, and we have a plan of action. Particularly, it's our understanding that this is going to start in fiscal year 2028, so it'll be the fiscal year of July 1st, 2027, and extend through June 30th, 2028. That's really, realistically, probably going to be the first year of operations for the rec center and the community center as well. So what we'll do is we'll come back potentially as early as May 19th and take a look at the fiscal impact of the property tax bill and the information that we have, and as well as tax increment financing on this. We'll analyze that, state where we stand, and we'll have an action plan for dealing with the ensuing fiscal year 28 budget is what we'll have. After that's complete, we'll make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll also give us some time at the staff level to really cement our operational plans for the community center as well. And we anticipate shortly after that, if we proceed with if we do still have the position, which I anticipate we will, we'll proceed with advertising the position. Now, I was asked as far as AI assistance, we look at that at all operations, and one thing I'd like to say, Mr. Dennis, I think that was a very good question. It's something we do need to look at to see if there's potential cost savings. What my position is right now, this is extremely early. It's fluid, and it could change, and it's subject to change. And as we go through this process and we look at opening these facilities, the indoor recreation center and the community center, we need to be as efficient as possible. So we will be looking for opportunities and cost savings where appropriate on that as well. So again, the plan that we have here is a preliminary plan, and our message to the city council. So I think there's a reasonable expectation that once we are done with this renovation, we will not ask for an additional subsidy to operate the community center above and beyond what's already being committed by the city of Pella. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's staff's presentation this evening. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that council may have on this item.
Okay, any questions, council? All right, we'll move on. Resolution number 7059, entitled Resolution Approving and Authorizing Execution of a 2080 agreement for the financing of the community center improvements by and between the city of Pella, Iowa, and Friends of the Pella Community Center. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board. And this is an exciting project. Has our staff very excited to proceed with this project. But I would also state the size and scale of the project that we're going to be talking tonight about with the community center would not be possible without the generous support of the Friends of the Pella Community Center. So I'd like to thank them for this agreement. City administration is recommending proceeding this evening, but let's get into somewhat of the details. Before we start explaining this, I think it's very important to know as far as the agreement, it was modeled off our agreement with Pella Rec. And if council recalls, we had a similar agreement with Pella Rec, and that was for donations to the Pella Indoor Recreation Center. This agreement matches the major terms that we established with Pella Rec. There's some fine tuning within the agreement in certain aspects, but by and large, it's a very, very similar agreement to what we have with Pella Rec. And so when we look at the project scope, we're going to be explaining this later on in the presentation when we talk about the community center renovation, but basically it's for the renovation of the existing facility. If you want to look at this, very heavy on electrical and mechanical system upgrades as well. In addition, with this, I would also like to state the Friends of the Pella Community Center would also like to proceed with both alternatives that we're considering this evening for that project. So this would be the full project, including the stairwell addition, and we have that in the contract as well. Now, as far as the project design of the facility, we're going to be showing polar elevations here very soon on that. What we're obligated to, similar with Pella Rec, is that we need to consult with the Friends on any substantial design changes to the facility. However, we are retaining the exclusive right to make the final decision on this as well. Now, as far as ownership of the facility, the city currently owns the Pella Community Center. We'll continue to own the Pella Community Center. We'll also employ the construction firm to renovate the facility. And we're also, once it's all said and done, we will operate the Pella Community Center as well. And that the agreement simply just states that. So let's go ahead, please, Heidi. Now, as far as the budget for the project, as you can see, we're just under $8.1 million for the project. And to elaborate on this, what the project does is it goes through and identifies cost of the project. So the construction contract, this would be for our low bidder tonight, which appears to be Stall Construction. And that includes the alternates for this, so that's $6,540,000 that we have. Now, as far as the architectural and construction observation fees, we have $138,000 in this. Now, it is important to note that the city today has spent about $393,000 on the Pella Community Center. So these would be the design fees that we pay Schemmer and Associates by and large to get us to this point. What we have remaining is the construction observation fees. So Schemmer will have folks that will be inspecting the facility to make sure that the building is being renovated in accordance with the plans and specifications. Those charges are $138,000. And then one of the items that I'm super excited about, and I'm appreciative of the City Council for approving for us, this is a complex project, and what we have scheduled here is Mr. Bob Veenstra to assist us with this project. And as council knows, Bob is an expert in quite a few things, building renovations. He's very knowledgeable in. He's going to serve as our owner representative. So what we're hoping to do is model the services that Bob currently provides for the Pella Indoor Recreation Center. And I think that arrangement's gone very, very well. Bob's kept that project on track and done a great job for the city. We have a little height estimated on the high side for his projects, as fees aren't quite that high with the construction period, but if we do run long on things, we got the funds there to make sure that we've got Bob's fees covered. Now, as far as the equipment and furnishings on this as well, there's been quite a few things tossed around by city staff as far as options for the facility. With that, we got a blanket amount of $100,000. I will say included in this, we are planning to replace the kitchen tables and chairs within our meeting room. So that would be commonly referred to as 206. They're somewhat dated. We have that in the budget. There's also potentially that we may have funds remaining for some technology improvements too, including a technology room for the Pella Community Center as well. So we have a few other minor fees here. Now I want to explain these last fees here that we have. We've dedicated an amount, and this came out of the request of the Friends of the Pella Community Center, for replacement of the auditorium house lighting project. That is not in the formal scope of plans that we're considering this evening for the project, but it's the least funds that we have that those lights need fixed, and we have the funds that we're estimating it will take to fix those. So that will likely be a future change order for this project as well. And finally, when we look at the contingency fund for these projects, these older buildings, they have a lot of character, they have a lot of meaning to the community, but it's also, I would not be stretching the truth when I say this, trying to plan the contingencies for these is somewhat of an unknown on this. So we've gone high and hard on the contingency amount that we have, and we're hoping it comes in under this as well, but in case there are change orders with this facility, we believe that we've got enough funds there to be able to complete this project as well. So once again, we have a total budget of just under $8.1 million. Now, as far as the city's contribution for this project, we included in ours is the $5.5 million that, if you looked at the city council previously established for the community center, if you can subtract off basically $400,000 for the funds that we've already spent on the project to date, and if you add in our CAT grant that we got through the state of Iowa at $500,000, plus Marion County's local match at $25,000, what you'll come up to is that $5,631,000. That is the city's contribution. The Friends, again, a very generous contribution to this project at $2,453,000. So we do have a balanced budget this evening, what we believe is also an adequate contingency amount to see this project to the finish line as well. Finally, we'd just like to mention that we think it's very important for the City Council to understand with our contract it's great that we have partners, the Friends, but we also want to make sure Council understands that we've retained the exclusive right to be the decision makers on the project as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes the staff presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Or Brander, Horstman, Stryland, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Stephen-Stryland.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 7060, entitled Resolution Directing the Acceptance of a Proposal to Purchase $5,495,000, amount subject to change, general obligation, capital loan note, Series 2026B. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. As Mayor Ward stated, what we have this evening is an acceptance of an offer to purchase the city's bonds. The bond issue ultimately is to be able to fund the University Street extension as well as the Baseline Drive extension, as well as some sanitary sewer improvements to support the Pella Indoor Recreation Center. Now that I'm explaining this item, as far as the projects, the city is currently in the process of constructing the University Street extension project that extends University Street from 240th Avenue out to 250th Avenue. As part of that project, we're also going to be extending Baseline Drive to the north, and you can see both those projects on the board as well. In addition, we have about $1.1 million worth of sanitary sewer improvements that are going to be used to benefit both the Pella Sports Park and the Indoor Rec Center as well. So when we talk about the agreement this evening, the agreement is with D.A. Davidson on this, that they're the underwriters for the bond issue as well. So Heidi, I think we have some pricing information on it. We did have a bond sale today, received pricing on the bonds today. So what we have is the bond par amount of $5,627,000. That's the final amount. The purchase price of the bonds is actually going to be a premium for the City of Pella, so we're right at $5,743,000. Now, when you look at and you factor in the premium as well as the coupon rates on the bond, and the term of these bonds is 20 years, we have a true interest cost of 3.93%. Now, in comparison, about a little over a year ago, not quite a year, we actually went out and sold local option sales and services tax bonds to support the construction of the Pella Indoor Recreation Center. That bond issue was at 4.54% as far as true interest cost. So what we believe, in looking at the comparable sales data that we have on it, we believe that the interest rate is reflective of the market, the bond market currently for municipal debt. Now, as far as the terms of the bonds are concerned, once again, we have a 20-year term on it, and with that, it's important to note, we do have a call provision for these bonds on a 7-year call window. So again, right around the year 2033, the city will have the opportunity, if it deems necessary and to get a better interest rate, we could actually refund this bond issue and refinance at a lower rate if we believe that there would be a savings to the City of Pella. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval of this action this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Bandstra, Carlstone, any discussion?
Mike, when we make the bond payments, do we pay D.A. Davidson and they distribute it to the bond holders, or do we do it to the bond holders directly?
I'd like to refer that question back to our finance director, Brian Weave.
No, it'll be, I believe it'll be set up for a paying agent through UMB Bank, like all the rest of our general obligation bonds.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Stephen-Stryland.
Yes.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 7061, entitled Resolution Approving a Master Agreement and Task Order number 1 with McClure Engineering for the Pella Municipal Airport. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to refer everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, we have two agreements this evening included in one resolution. The first one is a master services agreement with McClure Engineering to provide engineering services for the Pella Municipal Airport. Now, looking at the agreement that we have this evening, we have the master service agreement, and then how it's set up or established is based off the master service agreement. They could issue what's called a task orders off that. They're very specific to the task at hand that needs to be completed for the airport on it. Now, to explain this process and why it's important that you go through this process is generally the FAA recommends about every 5 years we undertake an evaluation of our airport engineers. And oftentimes, in order to have the fees reimbursed by the FAA, the engineering fees, that is, for projects, you need to go through a competitive selection process. The FAA process is a skills-based process, so qualifications only are considered on this. So what they look at when you talk about airport engineers overall, they look at the skill of the engineers, they look at the experience of the engineers, they look at their ability to complete projects on time, and they also look at what's factored in as the relevant experience in the aviation industry. Those are generally the criteria that you have. Now, in getting to this point, it's quite a process anytime you talk about going out on a 5-year plan for airport projects, because usually what happens is there's a wide range of projects for airports. And on May 19th, we're going to be talking about the preliminary master plan for the Pella Municipal Airport, and there's a lot of significant projects and numerous projects for the Pella Airport. What we tried to do was load the RFP up with as many projects as possible with the hopes that hopefully we'll be successful in obtaining funds with the Federal Aviation Administration on there. We didn't want to have to repeat this process twice because it's very extensive in the amount of time it takes on this. So usually what happens with this is we have to start out by putting out what's called an RFQ, or request for qualifications. We directly send that to knowledgeable engineering firms. We also advertise for this as well in there. And usually with this, in the past, we've gotten multiple proposals on it. In this case, we received 2. And so the number of engineering firms that are actively involved in aviation is dwindling over the years as well. In this case, we received proposals from both McClure and HDR, and these are both very qualified firms as well. Now, when we look at McClure Engineering, what we went through this is once we get the proposals, we had a team that actually interviewed the consultants and evaluated the consultants based off where we're at the Pella Municipal Airport. Our Public Works Director, Wilf Nixon, who wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting, was one member, and then our airport manager and also an FBO out there from Classic Aviation, the principal, Mr. Shane Vandervoort, was also part of the interview panel as well. It was my understanding, based off this and looking at both firms, it was felt that both firms were capable of doing the job, both had expertise on it as well. It's my understanding that in making a decision between McClure and HDR, that was felt that McClure was better suited our needs at the time. It was more geared towards the Pella needs on it. So with that, the recommendation came to McClure. And how things work is before you can select McClure, you have to do quite a write-up and summary for the FAA, and it's reviewed by their staff to make sure that the FAA process is followed on it. So it's a very in-depth, comprehensive review process. That review process has been done. Our staff did check references this evening with McClure. McClure has extensive experience throughout the state of Iowa in aviation matters. They currently serve as an airport engineer to the Ankeny Regional Airport, where they do a lot of projects up there. We did contact Ankeny because they have quite a bit of experience, and they came very highly recommended on this evening with the references that we have. And so with that, based off what we have with the engineering agreement, Heidi, let's go ahead and we'll cover this. So that's the master plan, that's the process. It's a very comprehensive, skills-based approach. You cannot consider fees as a part of the selection process, so this is all qualification-based on it. So when we look at the agreement, the master planning, what we have up here, and again, if you were to take a look at the number of projects that we had in this RFP, there's everything from parallel taxiways on the RFP, to potentially environmental assessments for projects, land acquisitions, runway expansions that we have. So it's a very comprehensive list of numerous projects that we have out there, as well as far as the selection process. Now, as far as the scope of services this evening for the first task order, and this is the experience that I've had this evening with McClure Engineering, we're somewhat under the gun and under the time frame for our snow removal equipment at the Pella Municipal Airport. We've been working with the FAA, but the city has until June 10th to submit a grant application to the Federal Aviation Administration. The scope of services that we have this evening is for $59,000, $59,600, and that's to prepare the bid specifications and conduct the bid letting for the snow equipment removal equipment at the Pella Municipal Airport. It's important to note that this is a $550,000 estimated total cost of the project, including engineering, and FAA is proposing to pay for 90%. Now, when we look at this, like quite often, when we look at airports on there, there's quite a lot of detail of airports on this as well. Snow equipment removal on the FAA regulations on that as well is very in-depth as well. So when we look at the proposed fees in McClure this evening, this being under $60,000 and consider the complexity and the short time frame that we have to work as far as securing the grant with the Federal Aviation Administration, we believe that their fees are reasonable. So staff's position this evening, Mr. Mayor, again, we had two highly qualified firms. It's my understanding that the recommendation just came on based on where we're at right now as far as the projects. They felt McClure may be a better fit that we have this evening. And so with that, we are recommending McClure Engineering, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
I'd like to have a little discussion first.
Well, we got to get a motion on the table first.
Okay, all right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll support it.
Manstra, Carlstone, now discussion.
Okay, thank you. The selection process was a little fuzzy or foggy. It seemed like on April 15th, it appears that it was known that McClure was going to be awarded the contract. And yet on April the 24th, at the airport committee meeting, it was announced publicly, and many people were very surprised, including the airport manager, most of the committee. So as the committee asked, were they asked, which engineering firm do you want?
This is my understanding of the selection process on it. I believe Will, our Public Works Director, reached out to the committee in the spring and asked for participation of the committee. We weren't able to get a committee representation during the selection process, so we did have Mr. Shane Vandervoort that attended those meetings on it as well, as far as the recommendation. Now, as far as the evaluation of this is concerned and the timing of it, when I first became aware of the recommendation on it, what was communicated back to the consultants, there appears to be a delay as far as what was communicated back to the consultants.
Yes.
So that's the April 15th to April 24th.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard too about the communication to the firm not receiving the nod, is that somehow or another an email was either not sent or sent, didn't get delivered, or whatever. But it seems to me that in moments of this magnitude, that a phone call should have been made to the parties. So often, it's better to speak it than to write it, and then follow up with a written, hey, this is what's happening. Because it just has left a bad taste in my mouth that the committee, whose responsibilities are to advise us on all topics concerning the airport, don't seem to get much attention. Now, if you say they didn't show up, that's another problem. But
That was my understanding as far as the interview, the contact was made to reach out for representation, and we just weren't able to get that done, so.
well, I will admit, I missed that interview, but I'm not on the committee. I'm just an observer. So, anyhow, I'm just concerned about the way the news actually got delivered, and we just can't do that. We just can't do it that way. We gotta be, if nothing else, I've sent out emails, and please tell me that you got it. So that I know it got delivered and read.
Mr. Butler, I will state that was regrettable that they weren't notified sooner, and I agree with you, and we can't go back and correct what was done, but I will say this, I've had a very positive relationship with HDR, and a lot of respect for it. It was regrettable that there wasn't more notice than what there was.
guess I want to follow up with what John and what Harry said too. I just had a little bit of feeling of angst as I read through this with a couple things. One of them, when we do a proposal like for the community center, it's a very clear, we go for the lowest responsible bid. This is very fuzzy when it comes to qualifications. And so when we see this back, there's no specific, I think you used the phrase a better fit. That's not very specific to me, you know what that is. And I'm not criticizing you because basically if you're choosing one, you're saying the other one isn't as qualified or doesn't have the specific qualifications. So that gave, it just made me, because how long has HDR been working for the city?
Well, as far as I can tell for the city, or let me take a step back. They are currently conducting the master plan for the City of Pella on that, and we went through a consultant process just for the master plan. HDR was the only firm that submitted. I conducted that one for the city. So with that, I was much more familiar with that process. They've been on with the City of Pella as far as the master plan. Now, as far as being selected and working on projects for the City of Pella, it's been some time. And Mr. Jerry Searle has been our primary contact at HDR, and he's been on call with the city quite a few times. He's helped out quite a bit. Now, recently, I'd say since the regional airport has been put on hold on the project, activities picked up at the Pella Municipal Airport. So as far as our actual contractual relationship that we have as far as selecting, it dates back to the master plan. But we've also hired Jerry on specific tasks to help us out at the airport and quite a few analysis over the years. So if I had to guess as far as duties at HDR, because Jerry's firm hasn't always been HDR on it as well, it's been at least 5 to 6 years that we've worked with Jerry on task at the Pella Airport.
And then the second question, and I might...
Mr. Van Strick, could I go back?
Yeah, sure.
And interject? When we look at the skills base, that's FAA requirements. So it's a skills based qualification system, and you cannot consider fees or things like that. They have a different process for any fees that are over $100,000 according to their regulations. So it's not necessarily the local authorities trying to establish what the process is. These are all in accordance with FAA regulations, the selection process.
But at some point, we make a determination that this group's skills are better than this group's.
Correct.
And I don't know which skills were picked, which skills were given the priority as I look at this. So, and then I had one other so that just gave me some pause. And then the other thing, can we send more than one RFQ, more than one name to the FAA? For some reason in my head we could send 2.
Well, Al, this is my understanding on this as well. And Mandy, is Wolf on the phone this evening?
He is on the phone.
Okay. Well, I would ask if I stated anything incorrectly. The RFQ that we sent out, yes, we could do RFQs. We could do as many RFQs as we want and as often as we want on it as well. I would just caution that this is a very time-intensive process that we've undergone with it. But with the RFQ that was sent out, it typically has, when people split the services on it, usually it's in regards to planning services versus actual projects on it as well. And with our RFQ, we had both planning, and so this would be the environmental assessments, land acquisition process, along with the projects. It was all combined. And that determination was made initially on there. The thought is, when we talked to the airport committee back in, I believe it was October or November of last year about this process, that we wanted to go through this one time, do a 5-year plan as opposed to issuing an RFQ out. And it was generally thought that the committee would rather have one consultant as opposed to 2. So, but you can do that, is my understanding, but to do that, you have to separate out the planning side of things from the project side of that. So, but we did not do that in this case.
So my thought was this: if we have one, which it looks like we just had one previously as well too, we're not allowed by the FAA to use somebody that hasn't met their seen their RFQ, because again, I'm going to like the community center, we put that for public bids. Now, if we just have one that we can use, my fear is that we can't do engineering projects to 2 different engineering firms if only one is on the good list with FAA? Maybe that's not true, maybe I'm simplifying it way too much.
Let me find out. We will ask the question, but I think it deals with if you're gonna ask for reimbursement of the engineering fees for the proposed project, was my understanding of it. So if we're asking to be reimbursed for engineering fees for projects on it, then you have to go through their selection process on it. I hope that makes sense. I don't think you're precluded from using different engineering firms. It's just a difference if you ask for it to have your engineering fees reimbursed. Now, as far as decisions are made, is when you go out for advertisement, how long the contracts are with that in RFQs, we're at liberty to do that as many times as we like, is my understanding, but it is a very time-intensive process on it. And as far as what came back to me, as far as the recommendation from what I saw, again, both firms were qualified, but it was my understanding, it was that after going through the interview process, that feeling was by the participants that actually interviewed the firms that McClure was a better fit for the city based on where we stand with the projects and the projects that we have coming up on the docket.
I share Calvin's concern. I can share John's concern, and I share Harry's concern. And I'm going to take it down a couple notches to the very rudimentary nature of our city government. And we are a city government that is based on committees. And we just saw this evening, we had recommendations from the library committee, we had recommendations from planning and zoning. We always take recommendations. So this afternoon, I did take the liberty of calling members of our aviation board, and they were unaware. They had no input into a 5-year contract. So taking it down to brass tacks and representing the taxpayers, I have a very difficult time voting on a 5-year contract that wasn't even reviewed by the committee of experts, and they are good people on that committee. It's just very difficult for me to do that because the one thing I do know about the FFA after 9 years, I keep saying FFA, FAA, is that they do have a lot of rules and regulations. And another question I have that no one's been able to answer for me so far, and Mike, perhaps you can do that, is an interview process with 2 people in the room seems very atypical in nature than everything I've seen for the FAA. They usually have a straightforward mathematical component. When I tried to find out, I kept getting answers like, well, you'll have to call Kansas City. Well, maybe I'll have to call Kansas City and find that out. But even more than that, I have a hard time believing, and I'm not calling you a liar, but understanding the fact that we would have a committee with such fine citizens and not one of them would attend that.
This is my understanding as far as the committee. We made contact with the airport committee. We asked for a representative on there. We made early on with the airport manager, and Mr. Vandervoort did help us out with the selection process.
Mm-hmm.
But looking through this was also being somewhat driven by the snow removal equipment that we had. And when we weren't able to get the recommendation from the committee members on there, we did contact the chairman multiple times. It was my understanding.
Who has health issues?
Yes,
Who has
yes,
health
yes,
issues?
that
I want to
is-
put that in there.
That is, and I'm not blaming that, but also with it, it's not uncommon to have 2 people from the city interview consultants on it. So that's somewhat straightforward. Now, as far as the FAA guidelines on it, they're very in-depth on it. It's my understanding it was a skill-based process, and we also, but when looking at this, we did make contacts for both the committee and council representatives on this. And at the time, we just, where we're at, and keeping in mind that you also have to design the snow equipment, the bid specifications for that too, the committee had to move on at that. So that was the recommendation.
And the committee was given how much notice for this meeting?
For what meeting?
For this meeting, for the interview. They were given how much
That
notice?
I'd have to, as far as what Wolf is, when he was reaching out, as far as this, what we asked for was a representative from the airport
Right.
committee, and that we weren't able to get, that was my
So,
understanding. So, Wilf, if you're on the line.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Yeah. With regard to the process, all my communication with the committee went through the chair, and I do know that yes, he was dealing with health issues, and it's not my intent to assign any blame or anything like that at all. We were very keen to have someone from the committee review the proposals. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, and I chose to move forward with doing the interviews. Again, the chairman was invited, either himself or to ask a member of the committee to attend. I think we set those up. There was about a week's notice, which I grant you is not a great deal of time, but it is some time. We did do our very best to follow in detail the FAA requirements, which have to be ability-based, if you will, rather than cost-based. You have to look at the capabilities. The basic result of that, in discussion with Shane Vandervoort, the first thing we felt is it would be marvelous if we could have both consultants available to us. That's not an option. The second thing we felt was, well, maybe we can have them both by making one primary and the other secondary. And again, FAA made it clear to me that that was not an option. So it's very difficult when you have two good solutions and you have to figure out which one is going to be best. And you have to choose one. We looked at, among other things, the ability to move the airport forward. And I think in Iowa, one of the best examples of an airport that has moved forward over the last couple of decades is Ankeny. And Ankeny has done that in large part through the work of McClure. And that made them, certainly to me and to my judgment, rather an attractive option.
I have another comment here is that we have two items we're voting on in one resolution. The master agreement and immediately a task order for a job. Seems like those should be, to me, it seems like those should be two separate items.
Let me address this, and I'd also like to say we do have our primary contact here, Mr. Jake Pudens from McClure Engineering this evening. Keep in mind with the task order, we need to approve a master service agreement, and how the master service agreement, this is very similar to what HDR does as well. They give task orders off of master agreements. The master agreement talks about all sorts of things, liability issues, and it just as their general contractors. The task orders are very specific to the scope of services that we have. And with McClure, it's my understanding they operate off the master service agreement, so you have to have that to be able to do business with their firm.
So that's,
Okay, well, my frustration is we've been talking about this snow removal equipment for a couple of years. And why it's, all of a sudden, now it's all tied together that we have to do this, to do that. See what I mean? It's like we're jammed.
Oh.
We should have been jammed.
Well, what I could say is in early October last year, we got a go letter for the snow equipment removal. So that's the FAA grant application. And if we would have had this process behind us, we could have hired our engineering firm and had them been off and running on the snow equipment removal. The question is at that time, since we thought you're going to have a sizable engineering fee for the snow equipment removal, we'd like to be reimbursed with the FAA funds, so we had to go through the selection process. I could attest after going through, over my years on the regional airport, I believe we went through 2 consulting selection processes and had multiple firms. These are tough decisions. It's also a very intensive and elongated process to go through the consultant selection process. Equally important to note is designing bid specifications snow equipment removal is somewhat complex too under there. So when you look at from October, as far as having the grant application in this spring, which the FAA has moved back for us graciously on it, well, it seems like it's a long time by the time you go through the process, factor in the holidays on it, and actually go through the advertisements at the FAA and all in accordance with the regulations. There's not a lot of time to waste, is the reality on it. So
So the situation is if we do not approve this contract, June 10th, we don't have time to get another master engineering firm on board and get it done.
that could be a possibility, but it's also my understanding too that we went through the consultant selection process. When and how often you go through, I think you have somewhat liberty to do it, but I wouldn't, after being through previously, and I'm not saying I went through this one, but I've been through them before. They're very intensive processes on there as well. They take a lot of effort to go through the consultant selection process, so I wouldn't recommend it redoing it a whole lot, but I could also tell you for what it's worth, with my experience working on the snow removal equipment, the responsiveness of McClure Engineering, they've been top notch to work on this project, on it getting things around for us, so.
Well, it sounds like to me indirectly McClure is already working on this project.
We've had to move to be able to work with that FAA and
Yeah,
schedule this.
so the
yes.
horse is a bit out of the barn. Is the 5-year agreement an FAA requirement or a McClure requirement or a city requirement?
Well, this is my understanding, and again, if I'm wrong, we'll go back and I'll double check. The 5-year agreement, is my understanding, is the maximum amount of time with the projects that you have before you have to go back through the consultant selection process, so it's an FAA requirement. You're not under obligation that you can't repeat something within 5 years if you deem it necessary, or if a project pops up at the airport that's not listed, that wasn't bid out before, and you need to go include it on there, you may have to go through the selection process for that. So I don't think there's anything holding you back from multiple selection processes for the 5 years. The key thing is if you have a 5-year agreement and you're looking to be reimbursed for funds, 5 years is about the maximum that you could go with FAA with the projects before you have to go read through the consultant selection process again. That's my understanding.
So I'm just listening, trying to figure out what the real problem is here. Is there a feeling that McClure isn't qualified to do this work? Everything I've heard is we have 2 very qualified firms. Our head of our department, Wilf, along with Shane, who manages the airport, sat down and interviewed, and they made a recommendation that McClure was the firm that who are going to work directly with these guys. So I'm trying to understand what all this discussion is about. Yes, maybe there was some miscommunications and things happened, but we know we can't go back and change. Are you feeling that McClure isn't qualified to do the work?
No, for me, is that 5-year holding us hostage with McClure? Is that, when we sign an agreement with that, do we have the opportunity to do competitive bidding in any way, shape, or form with I think everybody said too, HGR, and there's others probably qualified out there, although they're becoming less and less, the way it sounds too. There may not be a big market for us to choose from, and then that becomes, you want the 5-year agreement then, so we don't have to go to somebody else. So
let me explain this, and I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No,
Mr.
that's
Manfred.
fine.
On the 5-year agreement, it's my understanding if you're going to request the FAA reimburse the engineering fees, you have to go through a competitive consultant selection process, their process on it, if you want to be reimbursed. If the city wants to do things on their own, as long as you meet FAA guidelines, I believe we still have the liberty to do that, but it deals with being reimbursed for the engineering fees.
So if another big project comes along and engineering fees are part of that, and we'd like to be them reimbursed, we have to do another competitive?
No, but the RFQ that we have, it depends on which project you're talking about. And it's also my understanding, just because you completed an RFQ process, if we wanted to turn around and do another one, here in the foreseeable future, there's nothing that stops you from doing this, or if there's another project that wasn't put in the RFQ that people bid on, and you have to, it's my understanding, you have to go, if you want to be reimbursed for the engineering fees, you have to go through the competitive selection process again. That's my understanding. So it's to the city's benefit to go through the competitive selection process, but that doesn't preclude us from, if we wanted to repeat this process in the future for whatever reason, I believe we have the ability to do that.
So, but then again, the 5-year agreement, that's basically between the city and, that's not a requirement from FAA.
As far as as far as the agreement, the master service agreement, my hunch is the reason is we went through a 5-year proposal and 5 years worth of projects for airport engineers. So it came from the city. On the RFQ, we told the consultants what we were looking at. We put projects in there that we anticipate or could potentially do over the next 5 years, and that's how the 5-year agreement came about.
I can imagine with all the FAA rules that if the engineering cost is too high for any given project, they'll say something.
Well, this is my understanding on it, and this is when you have fees over $100,000 for projects, you have to get what I believe is an independent cost estimate at that time. So in other words, what we would have, and let's pick out a big project. Let's say we have parallel taxiway and we have engineering fees. What we would do was we'd get McClure's fees for that, and then we would go find another engineering firm that we're not associated with, and we'd say, what would you bid? And we'd hand them the specifications for the project, what we're looking to do, and we'd get a competitive quote for them. And we've done this before for the regional airport. And then you have to match up on the fees, and as long as they're within 10% of each other, the FAA views that as reasonable as fees, and that's the independent cost estimate. If they're greater than 10%, particularly in this case, McClure was over 10%, you'd have to go back and do some sort of reconciliation or renegotiate with McClure. Maybe someone missed something on it, but generally, and it's been my experience, the ones that I've been a part of, the independent cost estimates, as long as they're at 10% within each other, they're viewed as reasonable.
So what you just said gives me the most comfort at all, that we have the latitude on projects, particularly when we want fees reimbursed. We will seek outside or competitive bids in one shape or form on the engineering fees.
Well, see, the independent, just so we're all clear on the independent cost estimate, this is the FAA check. Yes, this selection process is qualification based. For the fees, it's my understanding it's for projects over, when you have engineering fees greater than $100,000, you have to go get another engineering firm and get a bid from them. Not that you would hire them, but you hire them and you pay them money to submit a bid or a quote on what they would charge, and you have to compare the two for reasonableness. But that's the FAA way of making sure that the fees are reasonable.
Okay, so you have to pay another firm.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
I was gonna say, if they came in with a much better bid and they get the work, they still have to be paid during the.
They have to pay them for the fee, and I don't even want to, it's been a while since I've done independent cost estimates on it, so, but that's not my experience, but that's the check on how they make sure that the fees are reasonable.
And I'll answer my feeling on it, Don. I have no animosity towards McClure. Where I am having a hard time wrapping my mind around this is when we have in our code of ordinances a very specific, and I have it with me, protocol for our airport committee and what they do for the mayor and council, and their very advisory nature would be to be very involved with something like this. And so that's where I had a lot of problem, because the very people that were placed on that board by the mayor to give us advice as to making a decision for a 5-year period, to Calvin's point, were kind of, I can't say they were dumbfounded, but the ones that I reached out weren't part of the process. And I'm a process person. And when I go to my codes book, which is given to me by the city, and I see that we have a committee who guides us through decisions like this, and they're blindsided by it, yeah, I I do get a little sideways on that. It's nothing about McClure. It's everything about the process.
I also want to make sure that it's understood from the staff level, it's my understanding that contact was made, and for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we're not blaming the committee, but that contact and invitation was made, and then we also
Right.
reached out to a council member that's very in tune with
Right.
it as well, and because of scheduling, wasn't able to sit
Right,
on
and
interviews.
of course I was unaware of that.
Yeah, so
So.
those two items we did try.
Yeah, all right,
So,
I'm just answering the question.
yeah.
Yeah, I had some harsh feelings on that too, had some contacts, but at this time, we don't wanna lose the 90% funding of the FAA. So,
Okay, anything else? We do have a motion on the table we need to vote on. All right, so we will vote. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
yes,
Randall,
Yes,
Butler.
Yes, for not to lose out.
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 7062, entitled Resolution Approving Change Orders number 1, number 2, and number 3 with Christner Contracting for the Annex Office Building Construction Project. Mike?
All right, Mr. Mayor, what we have here is another fun project. Just kidding, trying to add a little brevity to the situation. But let's talk about 215 Main Street. We have an exciting project that's going to be beneficial for the city of Pella when it's all done, and we're excited about this. When we look at 215 Main Street, it's been referred to in various forms as the City Hall Annex project on it. And when we originally started out with the project, we were planning on relocating our planning and zoning department to 215 Main Street. We also had plans for basically just the main level of the facility, where we'd also have the Iowa Department of Transportation that would be on the first floor of the facility. And then at the ground level, we had in there that would be the city's record retention area. Subsequently, through the project after it was led, the state of Iowa through through tax reform, has taken a position as far as satellite offices with the DOT, and it does not appear that the DOT offices will be following us to 215 Main Street on that as well. That's probably a subject for another discussion. We'd like to have them at the facility with it all done, but it does not appear because of timing that it's going to be possible. But I'm happy to report, when we looked at uses for this building, we looked at the Public Works building and the facility that they're in, Truman Road, and did an analysis on what improvements would be needed at that Truman Road building to be able to continue to serve the public on that as well. And so after looking at the estimated cost for that facility, we got to thinking, why wouldn't we just move the Public Works Administration in with planning and zoning? And we've talked about this before. Mr. Wolf Nixon and Gerald Bidas and myself, we meet with a lot of developers, and we basically, between the infrastructure and the city economic development as well as zoning, it's kind of hand in glove on it. We thought it made a lot of sense for both of those departments to be in it. So what's being proposed this evening amongst these change orders is kind of a change of use. If you're to look at the third level, and we'll show after a while the proposed floor plan for the building up here, but on the upper level of this facility would be the Public Works Administration, along with the training room where we'd be able to hold various board meetings for the city as well. Bottom floor, the main floor, would be the planning and zoning offices for the city, and we'd also have available space for any other operation that we could accommodate for this as well. A little bit of background on this project. We awarded this project to Christner Construction on May 18th, 2025, in the amount of just under $987,000. And shortly after awarding this, or not shortly after, but during the course of construction, we ran into a few unexpected items at the building, and we do have 3 proposed change orders that we have this evening. I would like to state, in considering the scope of these change orders, they are significant. We ran into water damage at the facility that we weren't aware of, and that was ultimately the root cause in a lot of the change orders that we're considering this evening. But equally important to note, I'd like to also point out that the original architect's estimate for this project was $1,644,000. We came in, like we've been doing recently, on bids at just under $987,000 for the project on it. So there was a significant savings for the project, but I'd also like to say that there are some significant change orders that's being proposed this evening, and it all deals with water damage at the facility. And sometimes with these older buildings, You don't necessarily understand or know what you get into until you start tearing apart walls and you find things, and that's what happened in this facility. So when we look at it, the 3 change orders that we have this evening is we had to do some investigative testing for it, and that was roughly $4,400. That's change order number 1. There's a whole host of items in change order number 2 for $285,000. That most of it deals with the water damage and plumbing issues at the building. And the third item that we have, and this will be a little easier when we show the color elevations of the building, is the eastern side of the building is we are going to need to remove all the brick siding off that building and replace it as well because of water damage on the facility, and that's right around just over $172,000. So Heidi, let's go ahead, please. Okay, what we have listed up here, and CDC just approved the design elevations for the building, but this is the proposed design, the city's design permit that we had for the building. And what we have is you're looking at the eastern side of the building. So this is the side of the building that faces Main Street that we have right here. Currently, this is all brick. We will be removing the brick and replacing that portion of the building with siding up here that you can see with the color scheme that was chosen by the CDC committee. On the remainder of the building, it's my understanding we're going to be removing portions of the brick everywhere we see the downward spouts or the scuppers on the building as well. In addition, we're going to be painting the brick as well on this. And so when we look at the change orders that we have, if we were to approve all 3 of them, which staff is recommending this evening, we'd be just shy of $1,495,000 for this project. And we'd also have a completion date of December 31st, 2026 for the project. So again, when we look at the scope of the project, it's a lot, but when we also look at it in the terms of the building on it, I think it's going to be a very nice addition to the community. Having both the planning and zoning and public works administration located in one building should provide staff efficiencies, and we just got done talking about, and that's going to be a theme at the city, is how we can work more efficiently together. Having those 2 departments together will lead to efficiencies within the city, and ultimately would be hopefully an operating cost as well with it. So and in addition, when you look at the Truman Road building that we have on there, if we don't proceed with that, we will have to make some potential significant investments on Truman Road that could be avoided with this proposed improvement. So again, the change orders include moving the Public Works Administration to the 3rd floor, redoing the 3rd floor, and actually having a training room up there as well. So Mandy or Heidi, can you please let's show the floor plan for the building very briefly. So I believe what we have here is the main floor of the building. So if you were to come in here, over here is east on the building. So this is the parking lot that we have. We have ground floor access. The planning and zoning offices would be right over here that we have here. And then if you come through here, we'll have the public restrooms up here. And what we have here is a very large conference room as well as an office. And that office, the reason I pointed that out on the main floor is quite a few of you spend or have some fairly significant contact with the public. What we also have there is we have an office available that you could go at city offices and reserve that if you want to meet with members of the public. That's there, that's dedicated towards the elected officials. We also have additional space here. This is a large meeting room that's currently unoccupied. So as we go through and we look at efficiencies at the staff level, we have the ability to move additional city functions down there or things that would be beneficial to the city because that was the former DOT space. So on the main floor, we do have some capacity for growth. Let's go ahead, Heidi, and show the 2nd floor. This is the training room. So if you were to go up on the 2nd floor of the building up here, we have a very large training room. And this serves two functions when we look at the training room of the facility. We hold quite a bit of safety training events and just city training on there as well. And we're either in this location or we're down the Truman Road doing our training on it. Now we have a space that we can conduct the city training. We also have a space to house the planning and zoning boards that that department serves. In case you weren't aware, I believe we're up to 5 city boards that are served by the planning and zoning department on it as well. We believe quite a few of their meetings could take place here. And that's benefit to the city because if you look at those board meetings and the number of times that we have to occupy this space here for city functions takes away use of this building from the police department. If we're out of here more often, stay out of the police department on things, if everything hopefully but city council meetings and bigger community meetings, we think that could be also a benefit for the police department as well. But again, on this side of the building, which would be the northern side of the building, would be the Public Works Administration offices that you would have as well. And on the basement floor, what we have is, if you were to go around the city and say, where are the city's record retention? And as hard as it is to believe in this day and age, we do have to have physical copies of records. So we have records at Truman Road, we have records at City Hall, and I think a lot of departments have a lot of records. What we're hoping to do is consolidate the records of all city departments, put them in one location, so this would be one-stop shopping. In fact, what I would tell folks, when you look at this building and we're all done with it, it'll be one-stop shopping for most permitting at the city, which I think is going to be very beneficial to our citizens as well. So, anything that you would have to come and see us for zoning or driveway permits and public works issues, those are all going to be in one spot. And I also think from a developer standpoint, when we talk about economic development, being able to meet in a facility, having everybody already there is going to lead to efficiencies as well. So again, that's the proposed game plan for the facility. There are significant change orders, and we do have our architect on the project, Michael Freeze, here as well. So Michael, if there's anything I misstated or anything additional that you'd like to add from your perspective, please feel free to do so.
Certainly. Thank you, Mike. So for members of the City Council and the community, my name is Michael Freeze. I'm an architect here at Klinger Architects and Engineers here in Pella. And I would like to say to my good friend Julio, as a citizen architect, living here in Pella, thank you for your service as a citizen architect to our community for all the years you've done for us. There's been some challenges at this building, for sure. I think with what has come up and the way we've tried to adapt and readapt and adapt several times, we're coming out with a very good outcome for this building. In particular, working quite exhaustively with the CDC committee. When you go back to that rendering, I believe you're in a nicer looking building now than what you would have had before on the outside. Wasn't necessarily in the cards for doing anything on the outside of the building previously, but sometimes you gotta make lemonade with some lemons. And to the Dutch colors of mustard and lemonade, being both yellow, I think we're now accomplishing that. We've reviewed the information that's been shown here from CCI. We believe the costs are reasonable. Now there is one aspect for change order number 3, which is that 172 amount for the facade. Knowing that we needed to get construction moving, there wasn't quite finalization with CDC yet. So they had written change order number 3 as a cost not to exceed. That was the most expensive of the options. That pretty much is what's reflected here. The removal of all the brick on the east side, but also extensive enhancements to the other sides of the building, particularly the painting of the brick on all sides of the building to actually not have a patchwork of a facade. Everything is now going to tie together. I think that's going to be a building in its present condition, present rendering up here is going to serve the city well in terms of how it represents the city visually. So there'll be some tweaking based upon the CDC committee's recommendations. And we don't believe at this time what's been suggested is going to exceed that 172. So there would be, at some point in time later here in the near future, Klinger will be revising some direction to CCI on how to make the final enhancements to that facade. And we'll all be back before you again with a revised change order of how that amount comes out to be. But I think we feel pretty confident right now that 172 amount for change order number 3 is the high number, and potentially it could come in lower to that. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You're promising no more change orders 4, 5, and 6?
Well, as much as any design professional, I know there's several of us here in the room who would like to be able to guarantee that sometimes, particularly with existing buildings, things just come up that you don't necessarily foresee.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anything else, Mike?
No, sir.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support. Brandon Horst and Stryland, any discussion?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is, yeah, we could debate whether we should have figured this out earlier or not, but had we known it all from day one, we'd have still done this.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And it's way cheaper than starting from scratch if we'd have liked, so I'm all in favor.
Yep, I agree. It's a beautiful building. Thank you for your work.
The damage was very well hit.
Yeah.
And there
drive by.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta make lemonade with some lemons. You've done that.
All right, we'll vote on the motion. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Reindeerhorst.
Yes.
Ian Steinman.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
All right, moving on to a public hearing on the matter of adoption of plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the construction of the Pella Community Center renovation project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to refer everyone's attention to the big board. And what we're here to talk about this evening is the proposed renovation to the Pella Community Center. And as far as the staff is concerned with this is going to be a very extensive renovation to the project. We have a description of some of the bigger items that we will be renovating within the facility. What stands out is HVAC, electrical systems on there, roof replacements, window replacements. It is important to note that we have a color elevation of this as well with the stairwell addition. That's all about accessibility with the proposed stairwell addition that we have. That will give access to the ground floor, the gymnasium floor as well. So I think that's a very positive addition that we have. But the stairwell addition, as well as converting some of the existing eastern stairwells into additional office space for the building, those are going to be very nice enhancements to this project as well, along with the renovation that we have to the facility. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy or Heidi. Now, as far as the bid letting was concerned, we had a very competitive process with this, and as you can see, when we look at the base plus alternatives, we had the low bidder was Stahl Construction of $6,540,000 on this, all the way up to basically just shy of $8 million with it. But that's a very, very tight spread when you look at the number of bids that we have. The good news is for the project on this as well, that they're significantly below the engineer's estimate, which has created some nice, very positive, I think, opportunity for the city, because going into this project, I think the community center is a wonderful project and very, very beneficial to the community. But personally, from a financial standpoint, I was worried that we'd have a big enough contingency to actually be able to proceed with the project. Our contingency, when you look at it on the size of the construction budget for this as well, by having those bids come in significantly under the engineer's estimate on the project, is that's given us the needed contingency, in my opinion, to be able to proceed with the renovation that we're discussing this evening. So let's go ahead. Andy and Heidi, is this it for the presentation? Okay. Short presentation this evening. So what we have this evening is Resolution 7063 adopts the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost. And actually, the following resolution, which would be 7064, actually awards the contract to Stahl Construction. For those of you in attendance that may not be familiar with Stahl, Stahl is currently the firm that's constructing the Pella Indoor Recreation Center. And we've had a lot of experience from staff's perspective. We've been very pleased with Stahl on the project as well. And it's one of the better construction firms I've worked with at the city in my tenure, in my government career. And Mr. Veenstra, Bob, I don't know if you have anything additional to add or to share with council in considering this. And so one item I'd like you to address very briefly on this is we also had with the city attorney review some bidding irregularities that we are recommending awarding. If you could give a Reader's Digest of that as well, please.
One of the issues that we're going to run into in the building is there's asbestos. And so the architect had an asbestos survey done, but nobody knows exactly where all of the asbestos is. And so they included in the bidding documents an allowance. In other words, a certain amount of money that would be spent on asbestos abatement that's included in the base cost. And that if there's asbestos costs that are above that, they would effectively, we require the contractor to abate it, and it would come back as a change order, and that would come out of the contingency. And so in an effort to try to get some consistency in how this asbestos work would be costed, they included a form called a unit price contract. So everybody, all the bidders were supposed to fill that out. Doesn't affect the cost, doesn't affect the awarded contract. It was just a baseline document that the city would use during the administration of the contract to try to say, these are the costs. For example, we're going to take out a 9x9 floor tile. This is what the cost this contractor would charge versus trying to negotiate it. What occurred is that of the 7 bidders, and I would note that we actually had 9 bidders, 2 of them didn't bid the whole project, and so we couldn't consider those bids. But of the 7, 3 did exactly what was intended, and 4 did 4 different versions of what was intended. And so there were actually, out of 7 bidders, they filled out the form 5 different ways. And because it doesn't really affect the contract price, doesn't affect the scope of work, it was recommended, and the city attorney concurred, that the city council could waive that irregularity and technicality and go ahead and award the contract. And we'll just simply administer the contract as if that form didn't exist. So you'll at some point see asbestos come back to you again, likely in the form of a change order or approval of unit prices for asbestos abatement. So it's really, it was kind of unusual in the sense that all the years I've been doing that, I think I've never had one where 7 bidders filled out something 5 different ways. But again, it didn't really affect the contract, didn't affect the scope of the work. And so the other bidders really didn't have a basis to say, you know, the playing field was not level because of the way this form got filled out. So again, the resolution tonight, 7064, goes ahead and effectively waives that irregularity and then has the council go ahead and approve the contract, effectively waiving any irregularity for that unit price form. Now, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right.
Other than staff is recommending approval this evening for the complete project, so.
Mandy, any written comments?
No written comments.
Council, any comments? Any member of the audience have a comment? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support. Manstrub and Stryland, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Reindeerhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 7063, entitled Resolution Adopting Plans, Specifications, Form of Contract, and Estimate of Cost for the Pella Community Center Renovation Project. Assume there's nothing to add, so do I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
Mr. Island, Branderhorst, I think.
Yep.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Reindeerhorst?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 7064, entitled Resolution Making Award of Construction Contract for the Pella Community Center Renovation Project. Can I have a motion
So
for
moved.
approval?
Support.
Manstrub and Stryland. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Reindeerhorst?
Yes.
Butler? Carlstone?
Yes.
Motion passed. Can I have a motion for approval of abstract of bills number 2198?
Move to approve and issue warrants.
Support.
Branderhorst and Stryland, any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Reindeerhorst?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
DeAnstruck?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Carlstone?
Yes.
Motion passed. Any council member have any other business you'd like to discuss this evening?
I just wanted to thank the Community Center Committee. You have stuck with us for a long time, and this is a big day. And we should all celebrate and go home happy because we are gonna get an amazing building returned to our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you for never, ever giving up. Thank you. You're here.
Okay, anything else, council?
Well, I would just say, again, we've saved a lot of money on a couple of projects here, and I hope we can get around to picking out Orchard Street tennis courts, see what's underneath, and build this sidewalk from the west side across 163. Those can't be very big projects. That cannot save money doesn't appear. But we would spend it if it had been there, if the bid would have been higher, so just to help make the city better.
Okay, anything else? All right, any member of the public have any other business you'd like to have addressed this evening? If so, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Leanne Hessing, 512 Lincoln Street. And I am happy to say that there is a new crew of men working on Lincoln Street now. As of last Monday, they have made more progress in the last just over a week than the former crew in I don't know how long. So I'm really glad for that. I'm unhappy that it took this long for the crew to get changed. And I know weather did impact it at times, but I also know from living on that street that there were a lot of days when the weather was nice and nobody showed up. And I remember back around Christmas time when they were working in front of my house, and I was out watching them for a while, and two of the guys talking about the job they had in Des Moines the next week. I don't know whether they were there in Des Moines the next week or not, but I know these guys had to pay their bills too. So I'm guessing the days they weren't here, that they were elsewhere working to earn money to pay their bills. And as we all remember, in 24 Union Street went past its date, and now this one has gone almost half a year past its, the date it was supposed to end. And this continues to impact the people who live there. I personally have fibromyalgia and arthritic knees, and it has been physically painful at times to get all my groceries to my house. And I know that there's other people on my street who have health issues too. So I would just like to recommend to the City Council that in the future, when they're looking at projects like this, that they really, really, really look at who they're going to award the bid to make sure that they are reputable, and so that nobody else has to live through what I've been living through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will adjourn to policy and planning to discuss proposed Pella ambulance rate changes.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, what we're going to talk this evening about is our rates for the Pella Municipal Ambulance on this as well. And this topic came out after operating the ambulance over a period of time. We want to talk about the rates that we charge, and just from a matter of, I'd say from an operational and billing standpoint, what happens from a practical standpoint. And specifically what we're talking about is the city's current rates, which we have listed up here on the board, and what our proposed rates are. And you'll notice that we're going down for most of these rates that we have here, and you must be thinking, well, why on earth would we ever charge anything lower than what we have on here, particularly when we've had some challenges financially operating the ambulance. That's a very good point. But one thing to keep in mind when we talk about ambulance rates and the rates that we offer the public on it, we are currently a network provider for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I would ask our chief and also assistant chief to help me out on this. If I misspeak, feel free to chime in. You're not going to hurt my feelings on this, but when we bill folks on this, we're a network provider, we're subject to the rates that are established by the Iowa insurance industry, and particularly they closely match the Blue Cross Blue Shield rates on it. And what that typically means is, by a network provider, is we receive the insurance payment on there, everything but the patient's deductible, which we bill out separately on this. If you're not a network provider, you can bill a different rate and above and beyond, but when you talk about the insurance provider and the payment, that payment goes to the patient rather than the city, and then you're responsible for collecting the total amount of the fees for the ambulance department from the patient. So it's a cash flow standpoint, what we have here, and also what it puts us in somewhat of a difficult position if you look at one rate for a network provider that has insurance and basically a citizen that does not have insurance. It'd be ideal if they matches both of them. So by going to the Blue Cross Blue Shield rate, we believe that we've accomplished that. We also believe that by having one rate, that we won't be put in a difficult position with city rates and have to make a decision whether we want to try to recoup the full rate and have a collection process in trying to recoup the full amount from a patient on it, or whether it's better off to take the Blue Cross Blue Shield payment. I think by experience in collection procedures, what we've learned over the years, that it's probably better to take the insurance rate, have the rates match closely to Blue Shield, and have one rate for everyone, regardless if they're in the Blue Cross Blue Shield network rate or not. So Chief, if I've missed anything before we get to the out of residency fee, feel free to chime in.
No, you hit everything pretty good. The biggest thing with, if you're out of network and our bill is $3,000 and the insurance pays $2,000 to the person, they're gonna get that $2,000 check, and you would hope they would be responsible and send that to us and not go buy a motorcycle and then make payments to us. Is what I found is, in researching people outside of network, they had a problem getting funds that were given to the individuals back to the services. So it's, being in network is almost a must for just make sure you're getting your monies back. And with that also, with our increased rates being over what Blue Cross Blue Shield reimburses, all that's done really is just doubled our adjustments that we've had to make, or write-offs, whatever you want to call them, at the end of the year. Our revenues haven't really changed, but our adjustments have more than doubled.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone has an ambulance, or uses the ambulance, files an insurance claim, you charge $650, insurance says they're gonna pay $387, you can't charge the patient more.
Not because we're in network.
Right.
We agreed to that in network with them, so we can't go after that.
So what you're saying, or doing here is setting rates at reality, not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if anybody ever gets a medical bill, you all see that. This crazy number that they charge and then what they actually get to pay for. So.
I think in an ideal world, if there was a more vigorous collection process that we could capture at the state on it, it may be worth going to higher rates and trying to recoup those funds off people. But the reality is that, I think the mayor said it well, on that this is the reality. Being a network provider, you're somewhat limited, and oftentimes you're better taking the payment on as well. And that's what's being proposed on the first item. Second item that we wanted to have, and I wanted to actually thank the EMS department for bringing this to our attention. They found a couple cities in Iowa when we've had quite a bit of discussion as far as ambulance services outside of the city limits. And for those of you that are in attendance and watching at home that don't know, we currently provide ambulance services to the Lake Prairie Township on it as well. And then also we have, as far as the other township, and the name's escaping me, Chief, as far as the Marion County Township that we do, Lake Prairie and Summit, that is correct, Summit. And then we also offer those services to Richland and Black Oaks as well as Lighton. So if you wanted to look at our service territory, we're all the way on Highway 14 on the western side of our community, north of the river, basically extending east out to over into Mahaska County, just about half of Mahaska County. So what the ambulance department did was they were able to research, but there's cities that are charging an out-of-resident rate of $150 for everyone that's not a citizen of Pella, and that's also eligible for reimbursement through the insurance carrier as well. Correct, Chief?
I believe it in Blue Cross Blue Shield, yes.
And so with that, there's a few cities doing this, and we thought that would be a good way to at least recoup some of the funds that we incur in providing ambulance services outside of the city of Pella. So with that, we would propose for anybody that we treat with the ambulance that's not a city of Pella resident, that there'd be an additional $150 charge per trip on that. And so I guess, Mr. Mayor, what we're looking for is direction this evening on the proposed rates.
Okay. Comments, questions?
I think it's a good start until we need a bigger, more long-term solution.
Looks good.
Didn't we just hire somebody to do collections? Wasn't that in the budget, that there was somebody doing collections for the ambulance service?
I think there's a collection expense that we do have a firm that for delinquent accounts we hire, but also I think in the budget as well, there's also a fee. Brian a line item for collection expense. I think we also have some credit card fees in that as well.
Yeah, the line item in the budget that says collection expense, 90% of that is credit card fees that we're paying. So it's not for an agency to collect bills.
So we won't eliminate that.
Okay, so it sounds like council's approving moving forward with this. All right, any update on any other things? I was curious, I haven't seen anything about the dog park for a while, or we're not moving forward on that?
Great question on the dog park, Mayor. What we have is we recently submitted our application to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for a lease for the parcel on it. So we actually have two updates. So we had that, and then also we had an estimated cost that we met with the Dog Park Association. If you recall, our agreement with the Dog Park Association was at 100. Basically, the city was contributing $87,000, and then anything above that, the total project cost is estimated to be $187,000. We had an estimated, updated engineering estimate on the project, came in at $263,000. So, two things. Staff submitted our application to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're going through the review process with the Rock Island office. We've heard that that's about anywhere from a 3 to 4 month process. We hope on it as well. And they should be getting comments back to us. So realistically, if the 3 to 4 months, should be late summer, early fall with this. We worked with the Dog Park Association to address the increased cost overrun for the project, and they're currently working on that as well, so we'll have a solution. So the goal is to get the finances straightened out for the project. By the same time, hopefully we'll be able to get a proposed lease for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and have a vote for council. If I had to guess, don't hold me to this, late summer, early fall on the dog park.
Okay.
I was thinking too that maybe after the dust settles, you could give us a work session, a high level, highs and lows of the property tax legislation and the impact it might have, just to give us what we might be facing down the road.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. In fact, we're planning on doing that. This is time critical on it. We have a loaded agenda on the 19th, and be prepared, that will be a long meeting, but we're going to try to have the property tax reform on it as well. And we've done some initial estimates, and we can get into specifics, but you're spot on. That's something that needs to be a priority of the city, is addressing that right away. And we're hoping by the 19th, hopefully we'll have an analysis by the League of Cities and be able to refine our numbers on what we think the impact is as well. But again, keep in mind that's a big bill on it, and it's going to take some time to get through it. But again, you got to start. You got to start on these things right away. We're planning to start that process on May 19th.
And might I ask also, I know there's changes to TIF, if we could at the same time try to wrap our brains around the changes in TIF before we get any more TIF requests.
Yeah.
So.
That's a very good suggestion, yeah. Yeah, probably the number one thing is, in fact, there was an article in the Des Moines Register on the city of Des Moines and their position on TIF, examining for that very reason.
Right.
Trying to analyze the impacts on it. But yes, they go hand in hand, the property tax reform and TIF are side by side on the impacts, and we plan to do them both.
And is the activation date on both of those bills January 1st, 2027? There was some discussion that the TIF could be July of this year, but.
I'll have to get refine the dates on it. I believe when we talk about the property tax and what I would say the general operating restriction, that's scheduled, I believe, on July 1st, 2027. As far as the TIF reform, I need to check those dates on it.
Thank you.
Couple other things that we have. I want to make sure I did have a comment. I know we've been talking about this. We have Mr. Veenstra here this evening, and I just talked to him this morning. We think early in July this year, we're going to be stormwater analysis, presenting that to council. We have received at the staff level, and if Spencer is still here, it doesn't look like it, okay. Got time to bring this one up? No, that's okay. We've received a Parks Master Plan draft, so when we talk about the two projects that Councilmember Butler mentioned this evening on it, those are both included recommendations for those areas on it as well. We anticipate reviewing that draft. I'm guessing May 19th is out of the, we got a loaded agenda, but we're going to try to get the Parks Master Plan sometime in June on that as well. So, and a few of these other projects we have targeted for June 2nd. The Old Highway 163 East Oskaloosa Street improvements, we've targeted June 2nd on as well. So a few of these items are coming up, but again, it's going to be an active summer for the city, so for the city council, that is.
Okay. Now, none of you have forgotten that tulip time is this week. So 2:15 in the afternoon and 8:15 at night,
Gotcha.
if you're able. Meet me on Franklin Street so we can inspect the streets.
Gotcha.
And all of you people out there, embrace tulip time and have a lot of fun. It's not an annoyance, it's not a difficulty. It's a great thing for this community. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Manstra, Carlstone, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Stanstruck.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Dan Stryland.
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Butler.
Motion passed, we are adjourned.